from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told him. It's the show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Now here's your host, Stephen Spargo.
Well, here I am, back in New Zealand, Aotearoa, after being in the magnificent Hawaii. And yes, it was a little bit of a cold snap coming home. We left 35 degrees Celsius, night and day basically. The temperature just doesn't change. And we walked into Auckland Airport and it was foggy and just kicking on about 6 degrees. And I was still in T-shirts and shorts. For some reason, it didn't occur to me to get changed before getting onto the plane, but that's a whole another story. I would like to say a big aloha to the Hawaiian Royal Gun Club, who I managed to have a quick catch-up with while I was there, and it's magnificent, the facility they have in the Royal Plaza there. It really is a treat to go in and see a range indoors, basically in a shopping centre, but that was so well set out because there was definitely some very backyard operations in other parts of the country. So a big hello to you and thank you so much for the chat and letting me have a look around while I was there. Another thing that's been crossing my mind a little bit lately is, why do people hunt? I know why I do it. I know that I get a feeling of satisfaction. There's nothing like going out and getting sort of that hunter and gatherer type of instinct that I think is within most of us. But why do you hunt? Do you do it to get away from the hustle and bustle? Do you do it because it's just a way of your life, or a way of life for you? And have you just always done it? Is it something that you do for pleasure? Is it sport? And I'm not completely against pure sport hunting. I do have a little bit of a problem if you're just taking heads and leaving the meat behind all of the time. That's a personal thing. Do you do it because it's an adrenaline rush? Do you do it because you enjoy the paraphernalia, the guns, the clothing, the excitement and that side of things, or do you do it for the fraternal aspect? Is it that the people that you go hunting with are your friends and they're lifelong companions, or is it something you can do as a family? Do you take your children, your sons, your daughters out hunting with you, and is it time for you to bond with them? So this is going to come up in a future show, but I would like to know why it is that you hunt, and what is it about it that you really enjoy? Personally, I really do get a sense that it relaxes me, and that it's time to get away from the hustle and bustle. And also there's, again, that hunter-gatherer stuff, which I think is bred into us. Joined by phone with award-winning shock blogger, the famous creator of the blog Whale Oil Beef Hooked, Cameron Slater. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Now, Cameron, you, famously broke the Len Brown story.
That's right. We're the ones who brought the truth behind Len Brown's nefarious nighttime activities to the public.
And although this interview is not about that, I just wanted to mention it because what a great story.
Well, it was probably the biggest political story last year, certainly the biggest political story in a long, long time in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Len Brown thinks that he's above the public, voting public, and thinks he can stay on despite carrying on the way that he did.
Now, Cameron, the name of the blog is something that a lot of people are fascinated about. What does it mean?
Well, it's a little riddle, really, to work it out, because being on radio, we can't really use one of the words. But if you say it a little bit fast with a slight Irish accent, I think you'll get the gist of what it means. And I bet a lot of our listeners are doing that as we speak. Say it a couple of times before. You might take a couple of times to get it, but it certainly brought a smile to my face when I figured it out. Now, Cameron, you're a keen hunter, and that's something a lot of people don't know about you. Absolutely. I've been hunting since I was probably about 15 years old. I got into it via scouting. One of my leaders was into hunting, and we did a few hunting trips. I just found the peace and serenity of the backwoods of New Zealand appealing to me. And I've done numerous tramps and stayed in huts and walked all these tracks with all these other people, and I just found hunting a whole lot more appealing. The fact that you're not using tracks often, the fact that you are in a remote place of the country relying on your own wits, and I've just sort of grown it out from there, doing all sorts,
I've recently taken up upland game shooting as well, going after pheasants and quail. Restarted something I did in my early 20s with duck shooting and got back into that this year. So I just find it really nice to be out there in the sun or the rain or the wind, or just out away from normal day-to-day life where cell phones don't work, and enjoying the countryside. And the bonus of that, of course, is you get to feed your family as well.
Interesting. Just quickly, you brought up scouting. Now, as most of our listeners know, and I've mentioned it a few times, I'm a scout leader. And isn't it crazy? A lot of guys that I interview that have got to our level in lives that still sort of go back to that hunting to relax and get away have actually been through the scouting movement. Was scouting a positive experience for you?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I even was a leader for 10 years or so when I lived in Wellington. And so I've done I did 10 years of service there. I absolutely enjoyed it. Then I had, a young family of my own, and so that took precedence over scouting. But, my love of the bush and the love of the outdoors, I've always tried to pass on to people. I'm always willing to take people for a hunt or take people out, even for just a four-wheel drive in the bush.
Now, Cameron, you're like me. You're involved in the media, and you're a lot more involved in it than I am. But isn't it interesting that we both, and if you go back through archive, I talk about it a lot. It's such a contrast from being involved with this high-tech, high-pace, very public world to get out and go back to that almost primal stuff,
Well, you can make hunting very simple, or you can be highly technical as well. If you're going to get into long-range shooting and start, knocking things over at 800, 900, 1,000 yards, and that's what listeners should be. I don't use meters when I talk about firearms. Firearms and everything associated with them are built in yards, and everything's worked in yards. So it pays to learn how to think in yards. But, if you're going to do that, then you do have to be highly technical. You have to know your loads, you have to know your projectile, you have to know all of the variables that are associated with long-range shooting. And so you can make it as technical or as simple as you like.
Do you find that hunting, and I say this quite a lot, but that hunting is a craft. It's something that you really have to master and learn, and you never ever know it all.
Well, it's like anything. You have to put the time in. I've been showing a mate of mine who hasn't done any duck shooting in his life, but he's, we go goat shooting together. I said to him, look, I'm heading up to do some ducks up Wellsford Way. He said, can I come along? Didn't shoot a duck all day. I put down everything that came within range of the Versamax, but he enjoyed it immensely. And he said to me, how do you get up on the gun so quick and knock ducks over? And I said, mate, it's just practice. And I've literally fired millions of rounds downrange, and with various different firearms, from pistols to shotguns to rifles to machine guns. So it just becomes second nature. There's a muscle memory there. So you're right, hunting, there's a skill with actually being able to get up onto the shot in time, but there's also a skill into being able to put yourself in a position to be able to take that shot. And it's practice. You won't know until you try.
Do you think that there's something about being able, it's that hunter and gatherer instinct, isn't it, that for some reason really appeals to me? I love bringing the meat home,
Well, that's right. I mean, when I usually drop off my meat, living in Auckland, it's a bit of a pain butchering animals in your garage. The neighbours don't really tend to like that too much. But thankfully, at the top of the Bombay Hills, there's a bunch of guys, real good guys, called Counties Custom Killing. And you drop off the stuff there, tick the box on the forms, and then they turn it into whatever you want, sausages or steaks or... my favourite for the kids is sausages and patties for hamburgers, Bambi burgers. So you get boxes and boxes of that, fill the freezer up. The missus is happy, and you feel a little bit manly in actually being able to provide for your family with some real organic, wild meat.
Now, Cameron, something that I needed to ask you is that you've publicly had a couple of issues with mental health and some things like this that most people can look up on the internet if they want to know more about it. Do you find that it helps you in that way?
Oh, look, immensely. One of the things that I learned in battling my depression, and it's quite severe and debilitating depression, one of the things that I learned is the pathology of the disease, for want of a better word. And what I found for myself is that if I get out and do some hard yards where there's no distractions, there's no tendency to want to actually hide. If you want to go from A to B in the bush, there's no other way to go there other than walk. But in doing so, that you're resetting your breathing, and that's the most important thing. So yeah, I find it incredibly relaxing. I find the time, when you're on an overwatch position where you're just watching animals walk around underneath you, that peaceful, quiet time gives you some contemplation as well, to realize that the world is a beautiful place, that people are beautiful people, and that you can actually enjoy life even though you suffer from depression and other things like that.
I find it actually resets a lot of my body clock, actually. I even, when I come back, I'm a lot more relaxed and chilled out.
Well, when we go to a couple of the places that I go where we can stay in some shearers' quarters and things like that, it's fairly simple. You get up when the sun comes up, you go to bed when the sun goes down, and you tend to get a lot more sleep, and you've also worked yourself really, really hard, and so a lot of people who suffer depression also have problems with sleeping and those sorts of things, and I find you did right. You get to reset yourself when you're out in the bush or the land enjoying yourself.
Now, Cameron, you've obviously taken pot shots at, and I mean that figuratively, at a lot of very famous and influential people around the country. Is there anyone that you'd like to mention that you go hunting with, or?
Oh, I've been hunting with a number of MPs, a number of other famous people, but I probably won't mention them. But they do enjoy getting out in the bush, and we get to sit there and talk about all sorts of things, and not just politics. It's a bit of a break. But, we all enjoy the same sort of stuff. And
you've got to tell me, where do you hunt? I don't need to know secret spots, but where around the country are your favourite hunting sort of meccas?
Well, when I was younger, I used to do a lot of public land hunting, particularly in the Kaimanawas. I tend not to hunt now in the anywhere where there's public access. I've managed to get myself a few spots which are private land.
Yep.
There's a place over near Lake Tutera in Putorino, which is where I go for red deer. There's a place up Wellsford Way where I can get access to ducks, paradise ducks, pheasants and quail. And then down Taranaki Way we go after the goats, and goat shooting is a great way to get a whole heap of practice of time on your rifle to get familiar with it. A lot of people get into hunting, they go to a range, they sight in their rifle, they maybe spend 20 or 30 shots doing that, and the rifle goes into the cabinet, they don't pull it out again until they next go hunting, and then they wonder why they miss animals at 200 metres, It's a discipline that you just have to keep on practicing and become familiar with your weapon, become familiar with your ballistics of your round, and then that way you just get to knock over a lot of animals. And goat shooting is brilliant for that. You go away for a weekend, you put down 100 goats. That's more rounds than most people fire in a year.
Have you taken your kids hunting?
Yeah, my daughter loves it.
Great.
Absolutely loves it. She's 15, coming up 16. I bought her for her 15th birthday a Remington 700 youth rifle.
Great.
It's actually ideal for women. It's got it's a 243, and it's got a reasonable scope on it, but it's a short bush kind of rifle. She's already knocked over a red with that, so we just keep on expanding that.
What's your best hunting story?
My best hunting story?
Or a couple?
Well, I don't know. There's plenty. There's different things. If you're talking about goats, it's bombing up a herd of 20 and catching them in a gully where they can't get out of easily, where they've got to run in front of the guns.
Yep.
It's your long shot. Your best long shot, which in my case is 625 metres.
Tell us more.
Well, it was down the Kaimanawas, across Kāwekas really, across a big gully, slight breeze blowing, nice big red hind standing there on a face, and was starting to move off, so we whistled at it, and it just presented itself, and I dropped it. But a lot of people think that's really hard, shooting 625 metres or longer, even out to 900, 1,000 yards, but really it's just practice. But when you make those shots, and the animal goes over in one go, you get that rush. The last hunt I went on with deer was down in Rotorua. Shot a sambar. First time I'd shot a sambar. There was 8 or 9 of them in view. I could pick whichever one I went. The guy I was with, who's hunted there a lot, he said, "Oh, you get the little one." I said, "Oh, what are we going to get the little one for?" He said, "Trust me, shoot the little ones." I shot this yearling sambar, and it was still 85, 90 kilos. It's a big animal.
Have you done? Have you gone for tahr?
No, I haven't gone for tahr. I'd love to get down there. I published a video just recently on my site, actually, of a helicopter operator who was hazing tahr, and that sort of behaviour around animals is unconscionable, really.
Funny you say that, because that video, I think I've seen it. It got around a bit, eh?
It did get around a bit. The funny thing about that video is that that was given to a number of media outlets, and they didn't touch it. They didn't think there was much news in that. But the people who gave me the video were just outraged that this guy was just operating like a cowboy, and not being mindful of other people that were in the area. And not only that, just basically herding animals with a helicopter. That's not hunting. No. That's what gutless cowards do.
Just an interesting thought on that is that you talked about media outlets not touching that. I think that the hunting as a sport, now 300,000 New Zealanders identify as hunters of various forms. That's from ducks to goats to pigs and deer hunters. But it's only just now that with shows like Hunting Aotearoa and there's the Hunters Club, which is coming out very soon, that it's actually starting to emerge as a real sport. I think Kiwis have it's almost been an underground movement, and hunters have been forced to find information online and become information seekers, and thankfully for me it's helped my show become successful. But they've actually had to seek out things because there hasn't been a lot of mainstream coverage. Do you find that?
There hasn't been any mainstream coverage. They run fishing shows and things like that, but frankly, watching people go fish on, and wind up a fish is rather tedious and boring. Hunting's a whole lot more interesting than that, in my view. But you look at the popularity in the United States with Duck Dynasty and American Hoggers and some shows like that are on A&E. And we've never seen American Hoggers here, but I've seen it when I was in the US. And, I've found that's really growing. And Phil Robertson's coming down here actually next month. I'm hoping to catch up with him when he's down here and just talk about hunting shows and the popularity of them.
Yeah, have you seen any of the footage from the Hunters Club?
They're the new guys, aren't they? I saw some. They're using drones and some other things, pretty innovative stuff. I was really keen on looking at that. I think I put one on the blog about a month ago. But it looks really interesting. I think they've got the camera work right. Some of the angles have made it exciting. Especially when they're doing the different angles for taking the shot.
And that's what it's got to be about, eh? The hunting. Hunting's all about the story. Especially in my world, and I think the Hunters Club particularly have captured that ability to tell a great story.
Yeah, well, I hope they just get around and contact a whole lot of people that are, it's like the guys that I go goat shooting with. We're all from different backgrounds, but when you get to the shearer's shed and you're cooking up your feed or sitting down and eating, the chatter around the table is even. There's no one who's better than anybody else. We're all there. How many goats did you shoot today? Oh, you only got 20 today. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then you've got that real camaraderie that's being built through it. If the show shows that sort of stuff as well as the hunting aspects, people will understand why people enjoy going out for a weekend. Staying in a shearer shed or staying in a hut or bivvying or, under a fly, whatever rips your nightie, I guess. But if it shows that, then people will understand what it is that we love about hunting. And then, of course, there's the bonus of either pest destruction for the farmer or filling the larder for your family.
Actually, you've touched on something that is great about our sport, is that it is a great leveller. And we know that from some of the interviews I've done recently with the great Joe Byers through to the founders of Queens of Camo and all these guys. They've got just a great... it's a great leveller, we're all on the same plane. You and I can sit here and have a chat about our sport, and I don't need to know what your income is or where you've been or what your status is.
It's fantastic like that, but with the advent again of technology, you've got access to all these great resources, and one of my favourite ones is Steve Reinella on YouTube with Meat Eater.
Yep.
He shows how to dress animals, he shows the different ways to eat animals, cook them, all of those sorts of things. I think that's really, really important that we've got that. In the old days, you belonged to deer stalkers. You went along and listened to these crusty old buggers tell you about how all you need is open sights and a 303. It drove a lot of people away from those organisations. And I've been talking with a couple of people involved in deer stalkers. I was hunting with one about a month ago. And they're really trying to make it more dynamic, make it more welcoming for people to belong and have a reason to belong. There was a long period of time, 20 years maybe, where there was actually no reason to belong to a club like Deer Stalkers. Now they're starting to get into offering benefits, for their members, and you have a reason to join. And I think you're going to see a resurgence there as long as they keep that up.
Yeah, the Deer Stalkers do great work now with their insurance policy and the hunts courses that they offer. Are you a member of the Deer Stalkers?
No, but I've been really seriously considering signing up again with Deer Stalkers. They've got also some great facilities, and one of my favourite ranges, usually because it's on the way to where I'm going, is the Taupo range that Deer Stalkers operate.
Oh, below Mount Tahara there.
Yeah, that's right. And you just pop in, I never put a gold coin in. I try and slot $10 or $20 into that little tube there because I just value that range immensely. You do a quick sight in, and then you're on your way to the Kawekas or the Kaimanawas or over to Napier or wherever you're going. But it's a great place to stop in. Actually,
my uncle's the patron of the Taupo Deer Stalkers, Curly Almiga. I don't know if you've heard that name, but I'm very proud to be able to list him as family because he mows the lawns there still every week and looks after the place, and Curly is not a young man.
Oh, it's a really great place. You just got to pick your right day to make sure there's not a big shoot on or something like that. But generally, if you're heading down for a weekend and you get there about lunchtime on Friday, you've got the range to yourself, and it's all really good. I'm a great mate of the former mayor down there, Rick Cooper, and he's got some great hunting spots too. He's a fantastic guy to go hunting with.
Our former mayor that recently got honoured.
That's right. Yeah, he deserved that too. For the amount of work that he did. He actually straightened out the council in Taupo, and I think Rick did a great job. But again, he's got a long history with hunting. Used to run heli recoveries and that sort of stuff. So he's always good for a good yarn as well when you're out, out in the bush.
Oh, and he'll give you a good yarn.
Absolutely.
Now, Cameron, I want to hark back to something because I feel there's a bit of passion there for you, and that's this whole thing about the youth and getting them out into the bush. And there's a lot of research that shows us that it can actually help with things like ADHD early on. It can help with their ability to communicate and socialise and all that kind of thing if they get into the outdoors and particularly hunting at a very young age. How can we encourage our young people to get back out and back to nature and do real stuff?
Well, I just think it really comes down to parents taking an interest in their kids. If they've got a hobby like hunting, then they should share that and share the love of that with their kids. Too often, though, we like to see parents using Xbox and TV and Sky as babysitting devices. And, I've been guilty of that myself in the past, and I just think we just need to get out into the bush and take our kids with us and share the love of the bush with them. I don't think that there's any age that's too young for getting involved with firearms. I think earlier the better. I actually think that the licensing system's a little astray in that it waits till you're 16, and I think, if you get kids involved in something earlier, teaching them the right safety precautions and all of those things, it becomes second nature to them.
Just to stay on topic, how did you find duck shooting this year?
Well, being in the Auckland Waikato region, I think it was a bit thin on the ground with the ducks this year. It's just been too warm, and then every weekend, throughout the very tight, limited season, every weekend we had no clouds, no wind, no rain, and perfect skies. They're not conducive to duck shooting, but I still managed to get a few, so that's all right.
Well, just to make you feel a little bit better, a friend of mine went down to the South Island to get his big duck shooting opening weekend, and he dropped one.
Oh, really? I got 8 on opening.
Yeah, I had a terrible time.
And I was jump shooting them as well off a creek, so just walking through the bush with the dog, and you come up on a bend and the ducks jump up and away you go. But the place I go, he's got 200 or 300 parries that are sitting on the grass, and they're still in season for another month or so. So I'll go and bomb them up.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, thanks so much for your interview, Cameron. If people want to read your blog, I'm going to put a link to it in the comment section of this podcast. But tell us, where can they find you?
It's easy to find. You can either Google my name, Cameron Slater, or Google whale oil. You'll find it. And the URL is www.whaleoil.co.nz.
Thanks so much, Cameron. And next time you're in Taupo, let's catch up.
Absolutely.
And just a quick reminder, thank you to Gerber. If you want to become one of our fans of the month, there's a new one being announced very soon. All you have to do is be active on our Facebook page, on our website, find us anywhere, give us some feedback, share the page, and you could be our fan of the month and win those great prizes from Gerber knives. And I've tried out a couple lately. Great knives, hearty, last for ages. And once again, guys, good hunting.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information on upcoming shows and topics.